Well, welcome everybody to another episode of The Exhibit, hosted by yours truly, Jocelyn Anderson. And as I mentioned so many times before, when I started The Exhibit, it was going to be about a lot of things. Yes, people know me for being a senior NFL insider, but I want us to be able to get into different spheres of conversations, whether it has to do with entertainment, whether it has to do with art, and even sometimes politics. But before we get to that, I always want to remind you where you can find us. My YouTube channel, the handle is at The Exhibit Concept. You can also go to the website to find out more about the emerging project at www.theexhibitconcept.com. And obviously, we drop the clips and a lot of what we're doing on my Twitter handle as well, at Jocelyn Anderson. But without further delay, let's get to our very special guest in studio. Today, we have a very special guest in the studio. Current Secretary of State from Michigan, Jocelyn Benson herself. Thank you for coming.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
And first of all, she just made a big announcement. But before I even get to the announcement, I have to go over this lady's credentials. Because even I, knowing her for as long as I do, was still amazed when I was going down your Wikipedia page. I'm just going to keep it real. Okay, listen to this, guys. She graduated Magna Cum Laude from Wellesley College, got her master's from Magdalen College, Oxford, in sociology while conducting research into the sociological implications of white supremacy and neo-Nazism. I mean, we could just stop there. Okay, also got her JD from Harvard Law School, where you were general editor of Harvard Civil Rights and Civil Liberties Law Review. You worked for the Southern Poverty Law Center in Alabama as an investigative journalist, so you were amongst my crew here, researching white supremacist and neo-Nazi organizations. Mm-hmm. Worked as a summer associate for voting rights and election law for the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund. Served as CEO of the Ross Initiative in Sports for Equality. That's where I met you. Obviously founded by Dolphins owner Stephen Ross, and who was also the founder of that initiative. You served with retired U.S. Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you went on to be the Secretary of State for Michigan that you are now. And you recently just made a major announcement. And tell the world what that is.
I am running for be the next governor of Michigan.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, congratulations on being in the studio, and congratulations on taking this big step in your political career. I think that is, oh my gosh, you are a hero in so many things that you do, and there's so many layers to you, even beyond just this announcement that you're making. But I do want to ask you, what inspired you? What inspired you to run for governor?
Yeah, two things. I think first, I'm a mom of an 8-year-old kid. In 10 years, he's going to be deciding where he wants to live his life, where he wants to raise his family or go to school. And I want Michigan to be that best place in the country for any kid to live, grow up, raise a family, call home. And we're far from that. We've done a lot of things, but our schools are in the bottom 10, and our industries, I think, are important, but we need to grow our industries. Particularly important to me is that we grow our film and entertainment industry. I think creative arts and storytelling is such an important element of culture and vibrant states. You see everywhere around the country, states where population is growing or states that have a vibrant sports and arts culture. And coming from sports, having worked in sports, I've seen firsthand how important it is for our sports teams to also be a part of that too. So making Michigan one of the best places in the nation to call home is why I'm running for governor. But the second thing is I also oversee the DMV in Michigan, which makes me very hard.
Okay, are you popular?
But what I've done is, when I took office, it was the butt of all the jokes, right? The poster child of government inefficiency. You had to wait in line 7 hours to change your address on your license, take a whole day off to transfer a car title. And we've completely transformed that office to make it, you no longer have to wait in line to do anything. You can just schedule your visit, show up, be in and out in 10 minutes. You can renew your license while grocery shopping, things like that. So we have completely transformed our branch of government government, and now I want all of government to be that efficient, cutting wasteful spending, all those things that it takes when you come in with a Stephen Ross type of attitude. Having watched him run a lot of businesses, I come into government with that same sort of, no holds bars. Let's cut wasteful spending. Let's make everything work more efficiently. And the benefit is that I can actually see others' lives getting better, because a mom with 5 kids who works 6 jobs doesn't have to spend a whole day at the Secretary of State's office, because we've been able to make it easier and work easier for her. That saves people time, that saves people money, and that's really what government should be doing.
So how quickly can you get the other states to model after this DMV efficiency that you just
So we've been working on it, actually. Yes, we have become the best state in the country for an efficient government agency. And so we've been asked by Indiana, Ohio, neighboring states, even California, what are you doing right? How can we replicate it? And that's, to me, what makes this work so rewarding. Right now it feels it's not always on your side. It's a pain to deal with. What if it was on your side? What if it was making your life easier? That's what our agency does. That's what I want all of state government to do. And to me, that's really at the heart of why I'm running.
It does remind me a little bit of some of the work that Pete Buttigieg is doing with the Department of Transportation, because we do need our funds from some of these airlines more quickly. I won't call out Spirit, so a couple airlines. Okay. All right. So no, I see that. And I think that is awesome. I wanted to ask you too, just about if you could illuminate what you feel like is the key difference between, yourself and the Republican candidate, Eric Nesbitt, and then Mayor Mike Duggan.
Yeah. I think for me, it's a couple of things. One, I'm the only statewide official in the race who's actually got a track record for taking an inefficient state agency and making it work well for everyone. And I'm ready on day one to do that with all of state government. I'm also the only statewide official in the race, period, but the only statewide official of any background who has actually stood up to folks like the current president, who can potentially, as he's just done today, cut funding.
I'm going to get to that. I just thought it. Right. Yes.
And so, to me, you need a governor who's willing to work with people on both sides of the aisle, but also is willing to draw the line in the sand and say, you can't come to our state, threaten our people, make people feel less safe, or create a state of anxiety around your very livelihood, as this action has done. So I have a track record, as I've done in the 2020 election, when folks came even outside my home and demanded that we block the results of an accurate election because of the will of a candidate who lost. I will stand up to anyone. Bullies, billionaires have proudly stood up to Elon Musk when he came to try to slander me on Twitter and X, or whatever it's called now.
Yes, ma'am.
So you need a governor who's willing to take on those tough fights, to stand up to bullies and billionaires, to protect the people of Michigan. And I've also done that and have that chutzpah in spades. But then again, finally, as a mom, as the mom in the race, as the parent in the race, it's important to me that our state works well for everyone.
What do you do when you have people protesting outside your house? I mean, what does that really feel like?
Yeah. So my kid was 4 at the time, and we were decorating our Christmas tree. The Grinch movie was playing in the background, and suddenly you hear this bullhorn outside shouting, "Come out and face us," and this growing mob right outside our window. It was really scary. But as a mom, I had to keep calm for my kid. And so I just calmly started running the bathwater, carried him upstairs, tried to keep him, not distracted by the noise. My husband called 911 and, got law enforcement there, but it took 45 minutes before anyone came to our home. And so for a good 45 minutes, all that stood between my home and this growing mob.
Oh, dear.
One neighborhood security guard just standing on our doorstep. And, all you can...
Well, at least you had that.
Yes. For us, it's the uncertainty in that moment. Is someone going to, is a stray bullet going to go through our window? Are people going to attack our home? And I mean, you just don't know. And so the uncertainty of that moment was really challenging. But at the same time, I had about, 5 to 10 minutes in which I was living in that moment of fear, uncertainty, taking care of my son. And as I continued to do that, I thought of the folks who stood on the foot of the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama in 1965. Folks who stood up, put their own lives on the line. In many cases, some people lost their lives even. but were beaten and bloodied so that we could have a Voting Rights Act that worked for everyone. And so oftentimes standing up for democracy, as I was doing in that moment, I was just defending the results of a free and fair election and making sure they were certified and that the will of the people prevailed.
And you've been around people who have done that with real fortitude.
Exactly.
Like literally.
Yeah.
Say it.
And so,
go ahead.
Yeah, Congressman Lewis. And I mean, we when I was at Rise, we brought a number of folks from sports across that Edmund Pettus Bridge with Congressman Lewis, because I think we all can ask ourselves, would we have done the same in that moment in history? Well, that moment in my home for me was a question to myself. And I realized these folks outside my home weren't protesting me. They were protesting the idea of democracy. They were protesting the results of election because they're.
But even still,
sure,
it can rise into a level of violence, especially with a lot of things that's
Absolutely.
going on in our country now.
Absolutely.
Regardless of whether they are, protesting an ideology, a result, or what have you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But I was proud to stand in the brink in that moment and say, not on my watch. Will you cause any, through acts of intimidation, us to stop defending democracy? And we prevailed that evening. We prevailed ultimately. The results of that election stood. So I'm really proud. But oftentimes that's what those who stand in the brink are required to do. Sometimes it is put your own personal safety on the line to stand up for the ideals we believe in. But the people who I consider heroes, the John Lewises of the world, Martin Luther King Jr., those are the people who put their lives on the line so that we all could have a better life. And that, to me, is what service really entails.
Speaking of which, based on the energy that people had and displayed at the DNC and just the path to the election in general, how surprised were you on election night when Donald Trump obviously was elected?
Yeah, I was surprised because the enthusiasm we saw on the ground in Michigan and around the country was really extraordinary. But ultimately, a 90-day campaign was not sufficient, which is all the vice president had at the time. Vice President Harris, who did an extraordinary job running a strong campaign, but with a very short runway, a very short amount of time to actually introduce herself to many voters and make the case that she would ensure that government was on their side. And yet the fight continues. I mean, what I always say is, and what Vice President Harris reminded us of when she did speak is, the fight only really ends when we give up. When we stop fighting.
Some of the questions that I had, and you can tell me what you think about this, just even looking back at it, is like, was there too much attention even paid? I'm just talking about even just the path on the election to celebrity endorsements, or there was a lot of focus on the loss of abortion rights and obviously female rights, and I'm not saying that that's not important too, and just Trump overall being this caricature of a boogeyman and things like that. And then when you look at the results that happened and how resounding they were, or just the electoral map by the end of the night, is there anything that kind of stuck with you as far as just the approach, or even something that would kind of inform how you would run for your own race?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of things. One, when I run, and I'm now embarking on my 4th statewide campaign in Michigan, I show up everywhere, in every community, every county, every district, talking to voters directly. And it's hard to do that as a presidential candidate, but certainly winning candidates in Michigan and across the country are those who don't just go to the so-called base areas, but really take the message that government should work for everyone all across our state. And so when you look at the women of Michigan who've been very successful, Gretchen Whitmer running and winning twice, Dana Nessel for Attorney General, myself as Secretary of State winning by 14 points in 2022, just 2 years before Trump won Michigan in 24. What we found is just talking about kitchen table issues. Ensure you can afford to put food on the table and buy a home in the community that you want to live in, and pay energy costs, right? Those rising energy costs.
I got an issue that you can insert in there too, because, especially as a homeowner, I feel like, there needs to be more rights for the people who are homeowners when it comes to battling the builders that seem like they just have a complete hold on, the residents when it comes to, obviously being a home. And then also just when it comes to fighting, the warranty, because they know that the amount of resources that it just takes to even go in that fight legally and things like that. And I mean, a home is such a big investment, but that I just put that out there in case anybody wants to put that, on their list of things.
We have lawmakers makers in the state of Michigan who can't afford to buy a home. I've got all throughout the state. The number one thing on folks' minds is how can we bring the best and the brightest to our state if they can't afford to live here? And so having a government that's actually going to, cut through those costs and take on landlords who are driving up rents because who don't even live in Michigan, but are speculative and trying to just earn a profit. That's the fights that we really need to take on.
Well, and not only that, but it shouldn't take a calamity, because look at California, with the wildfires and how quickly, some of this red tape looks like it might come down because of a calamity, when I'm sure people around the country are like, well, then just do that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
100%. Yes. Yeah. And so I'm not really a politician. I'm a teacher who just is a little bit impatient and likes to get stuff done.
Yeah.
And so that's why in the executive role, it's a great fit, because I can just, cut through the noise and say, this is what we're going to do. This is the game plan. This is how we're going to get from A to B. And it's, working in sports for a number of years too really taught me that too, because if you look at the winning sports teams, you see this, the culture matters, the leaders matter. And so taking a lot of, I have a book coming out in May that we're talking about. A lot of what I write about there is working with Paul Tagliabue, with Troy Vincent, with Stephen Ross, and seeing how winning cultures are those who are data-driven, make smart decisions, build strong teams, and then just simply get stuff done, get that win on the board.
Was there anything that surprised you relative to an increasing population that voted for the other party, I guess is what I'm saying?
I think it was, men on the line who were coming off a night shift right before Election Day in Grand Rapids, and they were voting for Trump. And they said, my wife works as a server in a restaurant, and he's going to make sure that her tipped wages aren't taxed. He's going to save us money. He's going to make decisions that'll cut through red tape and save us money. We heard that again and again and again. And what we saw, interestingly, is no matter the demographic and no matter the candidate, we saw Democratic women candidates win on this too. If you're able to make the case that I'm going to save you time and money, and this is how, that's what earned people's support in our state. Whether he meant it or not, whether he'll follow through or not, remains to be seen. We're still waiting to find out. He seems to be increasing the cost of living far more than decreasing it with the decisions he's making. But that said, what the people of Michigan said loud and clear across the board, African American communities, Arab American, Latino communities all across the state, is we want leaders who are going to save us money, who are going to fight for us. And they felt, in many ways, people who voted for Trump maybe felt that he was their fighter. And we'll see how that plays out for everyone, who the fighters really are.
Well, speaking of Donald Trump, obviously, since the day of the inauguration, if you were watching TV all day, you saw him on the tube, showing what he wanted to get done with his day one agenda, including some executive orders, when it comes to immigration, and even things that were announced today when it comes to announcing plans to freeze federal grants and loans, to just his desires when it comes back to DEI initiatives and rolling those back or what have you. What specific thoughts do you have so far of the actions that he's attempting to take so far?
There's an element of fear and anxiety that's been increased over the last couple of weeks since we saw President Trump ascend to office again, because the actions that he's taking don't align with the promises he made when he was a candidate. And I think people are starting to feel that in their pocketbooks and through funding cuts and all the rest. So we'll see how this plays out. I think right now you need governors who are going to stand up to those issues and fight for funding to come and stay in our state so that we can help residents keep food on the table, pay for education, and address all the other rising costs.
And of course, it's always, it's very dichotomous, right? Because on one hand, you're right, there is a stoking of fear probably for a good segment of the population. And then there's a segment of the population who feels like it's actually probably anchoring confidence in the borders, because there are people who feel like, these deportations, whether they're performative or not, I think there's at least, I think I saw on ABC News, there's up to 1,000 of people that are going back to Guatemala and things like that, that are, fortifying the borders, that they want. So especially with your law degree, I just wanted you to also kind of illuminate, what's the difference between him being able to, kind of announce these executive orders and what he can actually accomplish with that. Maybe you can help, teach us a bit because,
Yeah.
yes, we watch TV, but that don't mean, that I know everything and whatever. But then also the difference between that and where you can actually make legal challenges to things that,
Yeah.
he does. You know what I'm saying?
States attorneys general are really key to pushing back. And that's what really our attorney general and many others have done, suing the Trump administration if they violate the constitutional protections that they're afforded to every citizen in our country. When Trump declared he wanted to end birthright citizenship, for example, 22 attorneys general throughout the state sued the federal government to enforce the U.S. Constitution. And so you've got, it all gets back to really the role that states are playing right now in protecting our principles, protecting who we're supposed to be in a democracy and as Americans. And it sort of, it exemplifies itself in all of these actions and really underscores why you need state officials in this moment to be the guardrails at a time when there don't seem to be many guardrails left at the federal level.
Yeah, or particularly when they have every aspect of the government right now, as far as the majority, and then kind of speaking on what you're saying, because I know Illinois is suing over Trump's birthright order, and Governor J.B. Pritzker is, promising to kind of uphold the state's immigration laws as well, just kind of relative to what you were saying. But let's take a pivot here because I know that, first of all, I did meet you at the RISE meetings that we were having in Georgia. And obviously, as we mentioned, that's an initiative that was founded by Miami Dolphins owner Stephen Ross. So just for people to understand like how I know Miss Benson, that's where we met, because she has been, on the front lines with a lot of these things, for a while. And just to kind of get a little bit more personal here, because, when I was reading your background, I was just like, man, you have been fighting not just for equality, in sports and in civics things, but even just when it comes to racial lines. And when I think about you being born, in a Pittsburgh area, and even just looking at you as an obvious Caucasian lady, I'm trying to really even understand, where did this, this love and this fight, for unity and equality, come with, even in your own ethnic background?
Yeah. Well, my parents were special education teachers. And so I grew up really watching them fight for these kids that they taught to have just a fair shot, to have an opportunity to succeed in their schools, and really saw how unfair it could be oftentimes when there are marginalized communities or individuals who have simply just been not given a fair shot, who get left outside when they really could, and we all could benefit from being at the same table. And so for me, it was really rooted in that effort through ensuring educational opportunity for everyone that they led, that then took me to a scenario where out of college, I moved to Alabama to investigate white supremacist organizations out of a desire to simply to live in the heart and the cradle of the civil rights movement and understand what went right in the 1950s and 60s to elevate equality, what the Montgomery bus boycotts were really about, to talk with organizers who were there in Montgomery in the 1950s and had been a part of that, and to really learn from activists then and now who are pushing the envelope and trying to force our country to live up to its greatest ideals of equality and justice for all. And so it was really then being in Alabama where I was instilled with this deep sense of responsibility, particularly spending time in Selma, and where you could, not much has changed in Selma since the 1960s. You can still stand at the foot of the bridge exactly where John Lewis stood on the day that he fought down state troopers in March of '65 to march for voting rights, and think to yourself, as I did, what would I have done in that moment, and where are the bridges today that we can fight for or stand on? And so that to me really solidified my desire to just do everything I could wherever I was to further that work of those who've come before us to ensure equality for all. And that led me to become a lawyer and do voting rights work in particular, because we can't have a shot at equality if we're not voting, if we're not all at the political table.
Have you ever received any, or what's the degree of pushback that you have received, or, when it comes to either threats, questions, even from your own community, as as a white lady, as things like that? I am curious about it, because I do think that that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if you could answer that.
Standing up for what's right when it's hard means standing up for what's right, even when the people who you think are supposed to stand with you don't. and or criticize you or attack you. It's sometimes hard to have that friendly fire come your way. But you can find, and I have found, a sisterhood where I can, and build a tribe of folks around you who support you and have your back. So the book is also about how to basically take on even sometimes your own community or your own history, your own family, even. And
I mean, is there an example of that is stuck with you, whether it's from anyone from the KKK, a neo-Nazi, a neighbor?
First investigation, I talk about this in the first chapter of the book. I went to Spartanburg, South Carolina, all by myself to do an undercover investigation into this young gentleman who was leading a new neo-Nazi organization in the middle of nowhere, not unlike what folks in Selma dealt with. It is not completely the same, but still the isolation of fighting injustice is palpable, and that fear really, putting yourself in that moment where you feel isolated and fearful also requires us to make a decision. Are we going to march forward or are we going to retreat? And every time we choose to march forward, as I did in South Carolina when I was afraid that this gentleman who I was tracking was going to figure out who I was and come and kill me, I had a moment where, as a young 20-year-old, thinking, do I run or do I march forward anyway? And I chose to march forward. And every time I've chosen to march forward, I've gotten stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's how we build up that muscle to be able to stand up to anyone, anytime, anywhere who would threaten who we are and what we believe in.
And are you still getting anything like that still?
Now, defending democracy in Michigan in this very divisive, angry political era, every day we get threats and challenges, and it's scary. People have been arrested for with significant plans for threatening me and my family. Our governor was the subject of a kidnapping plot. So that's very real, especially for women leading in moments like this. But it's not a reason to retreat. It's a reason to keep marching forward.
I'm just shaking my head because it's like I have to just take a pause for how beautiful that is. I mean, I really say that sincerely. And it's not that I'm surprised that, you can have representatives of all background, just believe in peace and unity and things like that. But I mean, you have really done the work.
It's the work. I think it's on any of us who really want to be serious about improving our country and making sure everyone can have access to opportunity, addressing race, talking about race, engaging in conversations about exclusion and marginalization and all of that. That's part of the work too. I think our country and our communities have always been at our best when they're inclusive and everyone is together and working together. Everyone has a voice, even if we disagree, even if we see things differently, that makes us all better.
And that's the thing. I feel like people are so scared to disagree now, as Nala's even trying to give you your props on the work that you've done and timely walking into. You guys can leave her. It's fine. I just, oh my gosh, you can feel palpably, even on social media, where people are almost afraid to say something that they feel like is maybe cancel worthy or where you can't necessarily be on the same page. And I was just talking about a sensitive topic on social media, just with regards to Snoop Dogg, and help me guys, who else was performing at the campaign? It was Rick Ross and and Nelly. And just even in the Black community where this discussion was happening, and you had I think Keith Boykins was on CNN, and he made this resounding argument against why he felt like Snoop shouldn't be doing it. But what I was just trying to illuminate on social media at the time was, let's not just be afraid to have the discussion. It's okay to talk, like, oh no, don't say nothing. We obviously, everyone loves Uncle Snoop, right? But the point that I made on social media was like, let's give him his space to do what he feels like he needs to do to enterprise himself or say what he wants to say. While I also feel like those representatives in the rap community need to understand that that's clearly also going to evoke some historical sensitivities as well, and we can have that conversation without it being like, oh, you shouldn't have said something, whatever. And speaking of kind of sensitive topics as well, there's been a lot being discussed with regards to the DEI initiatives and what have you, and that some of these companies are rolling them back, from Target to Walmart to Amazon. We've seen people like Ohio State Senator, former Ohio State Senator Nina Turner, advocating for boycotts and what have you. What do you think about these companies like Target and some of the ones that I named, and others? They're not the only ones that are doing this.
Well, first I'll say it's been really great to see a lot of companies lean in
Mm-hmm.
the benefits of inclusion.
Oh yeah, let's shout out to Costco.
Yeah, making sure making sure everyone has a voice.
Right.
Consumers who do believe in inclusion and that everyone should have a voice and have a seat at the table, we should, also respond to these things with our own pocketbooks. And so to me, I'm keeping an eye, and I think a lot of people are, what are the companies that in this moment still stand with this promise of America, of all of us being in this together, of this sort of beautiful democracy where everyone has a voice and all these perspectives come to the table. I think the moment that we're in right now in America is truly a transition to, in my view, and my optimistic view, a multiracial, multi-ethnic, multicultural democracy, the likes of which has never fully been realized anywhere in the globe.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe we can get there. We can fight for that because it is the fabric of who we are. But we are in a battle over the future of what we're going to be as a country. Are we going to be? Are our businesses going to reflect a commitment to every voice being heard and having a shot at the table? Or are we going to devolve into division and lines and exclusion? All I know is that all the data and history show that if you go in the path of divisiveness and exclusion and not including everyone, you're not going to thrive as an economy. You're not going to thrive as a society. But yet every time we as a country have sided with inclusion, equality, justice, life has gotten better for our schools, our kids, our communities, our economy.
Including football. They put on the football. A great example, right? It says diversity does help sports in a lot of different ways.
Really just about making sure everyone has an opportunity to be heard, to have to succeed, to contribute. And when we actually open up the doors to everyone, we all get better. And so to me, it is, we're shooting ourselves in the foot if we move away from that principle. And all the data suggests that. And I'm going to keep fighting to make us that democracy that can be truly inclusive, truly representative, because that's how we as a country really do thrive and prosper.
Well, I know one thing I've seen on, just gathering of energy to, do this boycott. I know some people who are, Black entrepreneurs have expressed, fear as far as impacting the products that they have in Target and things like that, and just to talk over selling things from your websites or what have you. I personally don't think it should be a boycott. People are talking about 30 days, 60 days. I think it should be a DNR, not return. I feel like it should be even stronger than that because what is the message that you're really sending if you're just not going to Target for 30 days? You just need to not go back so that they really understand, because I can get, my toothpaste and my deodorant from a lot of different places beyond that. That's just, I was just having this conversation with my hairdresser on the east side or what have you, and I was talking to her, and I'm saying, she's like, oh, I'm gonna try to do it for 30 days. I said, what is 30 days gonna do if you're going back? Like, to me, it just needs to be more impactful than that, or even longer than that. But our
power as consumers that that we've got. I mean, you see it in sports too. Our power as fans, when our teams make a decision we don't like, you can leave. You can, get rid of your season ticket. There's lots of different ways that we as consumers can not give up our power, but still exercise it in furtherance of our values. And I think no matter what that may be, we have responsibility.
I'm gonna go in the Target and be like, stand here. Now, do you think any of these DEI initiatives are going to come to the NFL? Because I was just at the owners' meetings and in Dallas, however many weeks ago, and that was one of the questions that I had asked to Roger Goodell and some of the people who are a part of, obviously, the league officials. And this is something that they advocate, particularly when it comes to the coaching carousel and all the work that has been done to show more diversity in the coaching ranks and the personnel ranks or what have you. Clearly, Trump has not been afraid to say things against the NFL, particularly in the era of Colin Kaepernick and things like that. Do you think that he eventually potentially could turn his attention to the NFL when it comes to DEI and things like that?
I think that would be really misguided because, when you look at both the military and sports, you have a win and a loss record, or it's very clear you either win or you lose, and there are consequences either way. So there's not much middle ground, and you have to put your best feet forward. You have to put your best players forward. You have to put your best soldiers forward. You have to put your best practices forward. There's no real movement for politics and political. So in my view, my hope would be that we continue to enable those diversity initiatives in sports to flourish, because they've made the whole sport better. And there's plenty of examples of that throughout our history. So, and, same with other industries too, where there's no wiggle room for lack of success. And so it would, I mean, we'll see how far folks might go to try to influence other industries, but I certainly hope the owners of our sports teams stand firm, push them from doing what's best for their teams, which has got to be consistently including everyone, giving everyone a shot, interviewing all the best coaches, and really being aggressive to do that.
I mean, in these companies, already making so much money hand over foot. Anyways, let me go on, because we were talking about Trump, we were talking about DEI initiatives in the NFL. So speaking of the NFL, girl, what happened to your Detroit Lions? You were supposed to be here. We were supposed to talk about the coronation of your Lions. It was supposed to come on the heels of that, and then that
Chiefs. Oh, we're gonna satisfy America. Finally, take down the Chiefs for someone satisfied America.
But that's the thing. Now it's up to the Eagles. Oh my gosh! And then your Lions lost to the Commanders 45-31. What was going through your mind when you were seeing that unfold?
I mean, it was a tough night, and there were so many things that played out that, we were going into the game. Even the energy was a little bit different than it was last year when we won the playoff game. So it was a lot. But I think we're a resilient city. We are a resilient team, and we will be back.
Yeah, but can you kind of describe the sentiment that kind of flowing through the city right now, even in the midst of that? I know there was so much. My Uber driver last night was actually from Detroit. Like, you okay? You know what I'm saying?
And there was a lot. I mean, we had such a successful season, broke so many records, had so many great things going for us, and so many, and Dan Campbell is just such an extraordinary leader as a coach, and really inspired not just his team but the whole city, the whole state. So we were all in it together, and it was an exciting electricity that just all of a sudden went out with the loss. But I'm I believe you only lose when you stop fighting. And so I know Dan Campbell and all those guys will be back stronger than ever next year. And like every team aspiring next time around to get to the Super Bowl, that's where our focus is. And all the best to the Eagles and the Chiefs. Hope they have fun in New Orleans. Mike Tirico is a good friend of mine, and I went to an event he was speaking at, and he's calling the Super Bowl next year.
Yeah.
And so he was like, I don't care what the Lions do this year. We just want you to get to the Super Bowl next year. Well, and I was like, there you go. It's ridiculous things. I was, no to Sports Illustrated. Please don't put us on the cover next year. But this year, and I'll blame it Astro.
Side jinx. But I mean, even though you are coming back for next year, you do have two crucial changes. You did just lose your coordinators, offensive coordinator and Ben Johnson to the Bears. AG went to the Jets. Just what do you think about the loss of those, talents?
Such great talent, but Detroit is under the extraordinary leadership of Sheila Hamp in her ownership. I mean, Detroit has been it is going to attract more talent. It's going to generate more talent. So it's a loss, but with that loss, with that challenge, with that opening, we hope to fill it, and I'm sure we will, with even more talent, and we'll come back again next year stronger than ever.
Are you wanting to make a Super Bowl pick here? I mean, you have the Eagles and the Chiefs.
Yeah, I unhesitatingly, I grew up in Pittsburgh, so though there's a bit of a rivalry with the Steelers and the Eagles, it's not too much of a leap to go from the Lions to the Steelers to the Eagles. So I'm rooting for the Eagles.
Yeah. And last couple of things here. I just saw that you are an avid runner.
I am. Yeah, I just ran a marathon a few weeks ago, and I'm running another in April.
I know. And like, man, and then I read that you did a marathon 8 months pregnant.
I did, the Boston Marathon. Yeah, in 2016. Yep. My son can say he ran a marathon 1 foot after another. That's why I love running, because it teaches you the power that you don't always know what's going to happen at the end of a race, but at the beginning, you just take one step ahead of each.
Where do you have the time to run these marathons and be a wife and be a mother and running for governor? No, seriously.
It's all connected. It's all part of just, I do think we all, we make healthy choices for ourselves. It enables us to be a warrior on the battlefield everywhere else, right? Sports teaches us that too. If you sort of, eat well, exercise well, you can do a lot more perhaps than than you might ever
Like the
anticipate.
schedule of it actually keeps you
The
focused.
schedule, the energy, the outlet. I mean, running to me can be very meditative. It's where I have some great ideas and inspiration. It's where if I'm listening to music, I can think of things. And so it's a great space to be in. I've done it every day since I was 15. And I started
What have you done every day since?
Run 6 miles a day. So
Okay.
run a distance every day.
Wow. Every day.
Yep.
Every day, Jocelyn?
Yeah. The day I gave birth, I did not. How about
No, but that's still a lie. I mean,
what I learned when I became pregnant were two things. One, becoming a mom is also about, what parts of myself am I going to take with me into motherhood and what am I not? And running was a question, do I stay running as a pregnant athlete? And I learned that actually you can take a lot of things with you into motherhood, including that, and it makes me who I am in a way. And so it was so important. I've run 2 marathons a year since 2005. So now I've run over 30. And it's also a great way to learn about a city and the people, and I really enjoy it. And so much of being in politics and being in leadership is also about balance. Being a mom, being a wife, being a business owner, whatever you do, having balance is really important to be able to excel across the board and show up as a wife and as a mom, as a leader, and as a runner.
Well, I know whenever I would run distance, particularly back in my day, one of the things I could not do was actually run on pavement. It did, I would always get, cramps in my shins as a college runner. And so anytime obviously I didn't do anything over, I think 3 miles, maybe 2. So I'm not doing that. But if I did do that, I would have to train on the track or the grass just because of the impact on that's the only soft tissue or any issues that I would get relative to that. Before you get out of here, I do want to ask you really quickly, you have a book that is coming out, dropping May 6th. It's called The Purposeful Warrior. Can you talk to me about what inspired the title and what people can look to find in this book?
Yeah, the full title is called The Purposeful Warrior, Standing Up for What's Right, even when the stakes are high. And that's really what I've lived my life around, because my favorite quote from Martin Luther King is about how it's not who we are in times of ease that really defines us. It's who we are in challenging times that really is our opportunity to show who we are. And that to me has been how I've tried to define my life, to make sure we're ready to stand up for what's right, even if it's the richest man in the world or the most powerful man in the world coming at you with the presidency or Elon Musk. You have to be willing to stand in the brink and stand up for what you believe in and stand up for what's right. Because if we all do that, which is also the essence of the book, is talking about how I've tried to do that in various aspects of my life, working with Rise, leading Rise, helping to start that organization, doing undercover work of neo-Nazis and investigations, leading a law school when I was a young, 35-year-old trying to make my mark in the legal industry, as Secretary of State, standing up to the President of the United States when he tried to overturn the results of a legitimate election. All of it requires us to be unwavering in our commitment to integrity and doing what's right and being honest, and also approaching life with a sense of humor too, which is how I've tried to also approach things. I end my last chapter is about running, which is also a great metaphor for finding that you can perhaps do things that you never thought possible when you started out at the race, or whatever the metaphor might be. So the entire book is really about how we can be warriors in our own life for what we believe in, purposeful warriors, intentional about what we fight for in a strategic, effective way, and to think through all the ways in which that manifests itself. One of my favorite chapters is called Finding Purpose in Your Rage, which is also in moments like this, there's a lot to be angry about. But if we can find purpose in that, something Michelle Obama talked about in her speech in 2020, we can move mountains. And so the question I have to all the readers who read this book is, what are you going to do to be a warrior in your life for what you believe in, for yourself? Stand up for yourself, stand up for your community, stand up for your country. If we all embrace that warrior ethos, there's nothing we couldn't do as a community, as a country. And that's what I hope people reading the book will take away.
First of all, that was an excellent answer. Well, I just think that's amazing. I think all of that is encompassed in the title of your book, the work that you've done over the arc of your entire career, even at the, crossroads of where I met you with your work for Rise. So I really appreciate you coming all the way down from Michigan to talk about not only just that, but also just your incredible announcement to run for governor of Michigan. And we wish you a lot of luck in that.
Joy to be here, Josina, anytime. So much fun to see me in your element.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And doing these incredible things. So proud to be here. Thanks for the great conversation.
Thank you. Jocelyn Benson, everybody. So I just want to say tremendous thanks to Jocelyn Benson from coming in all the way from Michigan into our studio to come on the exhibit and talk about the exciting announcement that she just made just a week ago that she is running for governor of Michigan. We appreciate her time, and not only in her story in terms of what led her to get into the race, but obviously just the arc of her career and some of the things that make her who she is as a woman as well. We appreciate you watching the exhibit. Remember, you can go to www.theexhibitconcept.com, on YouTube at The Exhibit Concept as well. And also look for us to drop our episodes on Twitter and wherever you find your podcast. All right, until next time, I'm Josina Anderson.